7 p.m. meeting of the board for the East China School District. We'll start with a moment of silence and Pledge of Allegiance, please. Thank you. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next item on the agenda is items of interest, recognition, and inquiry. Board of Education members?
I have something.
Yes.
So at the next meeting, it will be Mr. Beaver's last meeting after 23 years of service to the East China School District. So in honor of Mr. Beaver, we were having a reception at 6:30 prior to the meeting, and we'd like everybody to attend if they can. So that'll be at the December 17th meeting at 6:30.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
Well, hopefully, Nancy, I won't steal some of your thunder. If I do, just just repeat it. These are just some of the things I found on the website. So first of all, I wanted to thanks to Mrs. Robbins and her 4th grade class at Bell River Elementary. They received a grant, and with the help of Mr. Robbins, constructed a pantry that will be located outside of Bell River Elementary. It is being filled with items from their successful food drive. The East China Transportation Department is hosting Stuff-A-Bus on Saturday, December 1st at both VG's and Neiman's from 9 to 1. Please come out and support that cause. Eddy Elementary had a successful food drive. Students and teachers delivered the food to a local charity. Mariner Drama is presenting the comedy 39 Steps this Thursday, Friday, Saturday at the PAC. Congratulations to Addie Spencer from Marine City High School, who placed 16th at the state diving competition. And also congrats to Josh Headley for his first team all-state selection. That's all I have. Okay.
Awesome.
And a couple things, sorry.
Oh, go ahead, Todd.
Just my son and I got to participate in the Tyler Kreitler Memorial Friendsgiving 5K on Thanksgiving morning, a balmy 19 degrees, running through downtown Marine City, but it was a well-attended event, and I know the proceeds go to a scholarship for East China students, so a great cause. And February 9th is a Chili Heart 5K for the East China Education Foundation, so another great cause for a 5K run, and hopefully it'll be a little warmer than 19 degrees.
Don't count on it. Okay, after all the happiness, I have a bittersweet announcement, I suppose. In front of each of you, there is a letter from me stating my intention to resign effective the end of the year. 2 years ago when I ran for this spot, I expected to be here for 6 years, but there have been some unforeseen changes in my professional life, so I'll no longer be able to serve. But I just wanted to say thank you to everybody in the community, the parents, the staff, the students, my fellow board members, Superintendent Saibula, for making this a great experience, and I'm going to miss it very much. Even though I received a Buckeye from somebody today, which was unfortunate.
Is that a threat?
But yeah, again, I just want to say thank you to everybody, and though I will not be serving going forward, I do look forward to continued success for the school district. Thank you all.
Thank you, Mike.
Thanks, Mike.
Michael, we thank you for your service, and we know that the 6 years was always your plan.
Yeah, I couldn't keep up with you, Jim. It was too much.
All right. Well, congratulations on your new
Thank you.
venture.
Thank you.
You'll be missed.
Mrs. Sabula.
Yes, I have one thing this evening. I wanted to congratulate one of our principals, Mike Demogowski. He was selected by his fellow leadership in the Michigan Elementary and Middle Schools Principals Association, and he is receiving a Regional Honors Award December 6th up at the Grand Traverse Resort. So I just wanted to take a minute to congratulate Mike and honor all the hard work and leadership he provides at St. Clair Middle School.
Great. Next item on our agenda is the academic spotlight, Marine City Middle School. Chris Ming, principal. Mr. Ming.
Thank you, President Buer, Superintendent Sybula, and members of the Board of Education. Tonight I am very proud to present, on behalf of Marine City Middle School, our Olympic competitions. So to talk first about our Science Olympiad program, I'd like to introduce Coach Pam Young.
Hello, everyone. Nice to see everyone here. A little bit about Science Olympiad. So it's an academic competition in which students compete in groups of 15. They cover all aspects of science, engineering, technology. It started in Marine City around 2008, 2009 at the middle school with me as the coach. So I've been kind of at it for a few years now. And then about 5 years ago, the class of 2014 moved on to the high school, and Mr. Dimmer kind of started up a team there as their coach there with a lot of success at the high school. So now we've kind of worked together. At the middle school, I still call it varsity JV, even though it really isn't. But the makeup of our team this year is the varsity team is kind of the top competitive team, and that includes 2 ninth graders. So Mr. Dimmer and I work back and forth with trying to keep the 2 schools tied together and working together, because I can have on the middle school level a couple of 9th graders. So I have 2 ninth graders, 9 8th graders, and 4 7th graders. And then my JV team, kind of bringing up the younger ones on the bottom, has 3 7th graders and 4 6th graders on it this year. So I'm looking forward to some good things from those kids. This is their smiling faces out at you there without their team shirts all together. Yeah, they're like, we didn't know, I didn't comb my hair. I'm like, oh, that's right, you guys are fine. So there they are smiling out at you. So benefits of being in the Olympiad, they definitely learn to practice their science process skills, problem solving huge, critical thinking huge, time management, planning, organizing, so it's pretty self-directed for the most part. And also leadership and teamwork, because they have to work not only with a couple different partners, but all together as a team. There's 23 events total that they compete in across all areas of science. So life science, those are more test-taking events, earth and space science. The physical and chemistry science are lab work, and physics, technology, and engineering are all build events. And then the nature of science at the bottom is kind of a mishmash of different types of tasks that they might have to do. Most of them are test-taking events, so when students take on an event like anatomy and physiology, it's really not things they're learning in the classroom, so they have to kind of self-teach themselves, what the criteria are, and then go in and compete in a test setting. There's about 5 or 6 build events, so they're responsible for following the directions, building to the specifications, and then competing with that. And then there's just a few more of them competing at the regional tournament is held at the Macomb Community College South Campus. So we've had quite a few successes over the years, so lots of fun has been had. We've been in the top 10 in the region every year since we've competed, and also won the Spirit of the Olympiad. It's like a sportsmanship award for 3 of the 10, which is kind of a big honor. That means they stand out and people talk about how nice our kids are. I always feel really proud of that, because they are very, very kind and good sports. And then last year we made it all the way to the state level at Michigan State University, so that was very exciting for the kids to kind of make it to that point. The picture on the right is forming the tunnel like at the football games, so they were all pretty proud of that. We could be like the football games and cheer. So here we are at last year's regional, so it's high school and middle school kind of together. That's during the awards, and they all kind of sit down in the front of the bleachers, and the parents kind of sit up in the front. This year's competition is Saturday, March 16th at the community college, the community college also. So last year we made it to states, yay, and 2 of our girls actually medaled 5th place in forensics. So they were pretty excited about out of 60 teams, so that was a pretty good accomplishment. And there we are in front of the rock. And then that's with the high school, so we kind of blended all of the kids together, which was kind of nice to have them working together with the older kids as well. And then introducing Mrs. Frederick, our new program just started recently, is the Social Studies Olympiad. And last year she kind of started that up, brave soul to get that going a little bit. So she's going to talk to you a little bit about that.
I had no idea what I was getting into when I decided to do this, but I'm so glad that I did. We began the Social Studies Olympiad. This is a great way for the students to creatively demonstrate their knowledge of different social studies concepts. It's for grades 3 through 12, so at the middle school level we are considered intermediate. And they didn't offer it last year, but it looks like going forward they're going to be including opportunities for national and international, that would be wonderful, competitions as well. Yes. This encourages the development of skills through participation in social and intellectual interactions, strengthening personal confidence through collaboration and competition. So there's individual events, and then there are also group events as well. Now there are two types of competitions. One is the off-site. Those are more project-based. Some examples: editorial essays, photography, online presentations. There are quite a few to select from. The on-site events are more performance-based. So those that are interested in singing or writing poetry or doing a play or skit or doing a monologue in character, then that would be for that type of learner. Last year we did very well both in the off-site. We did have a gold medalist, and we really had no idea when it came to the historical drama. I really learned a lot, and we're going to make some changes next year, but just they were so particular even when it came to changing the setting. You know, you had to do the set change in one sweeping movement, and I didn't realize it, so we were walking up with our different props and setting them up, so it has to be very, very quick, very, very swift. So for my first time, I did really learn a lot, so we're going to make some great changes this year as well. So each year there is a theme. Last year it was Our Earth is Our Home, and this year the Social Studies Olympiad has core democratic values as the theme, which is great because this is a concept that we really want to hit strongly at all levels, K-12. So the Social Studies Olympiad team, we meet once a week during lunch, and half the time we just have fun, and then we get to work for the other half. Do you? Okay, good. So we do have fun, don't we, Grace? Yeah. So this year in May, it will be at Grosse Pointe North High School. Now that will be for the on-site events. The off-site events, actually we have to have everything submitted either digitally or by mail by early March. So we do have to make sure we adhere to some deadlines. So I mentioned Grace earlier. She was a gold medalist for her current event essay, and I was so proud of her. She was so excited for our first time. So congratulations to Grace. And those aren't all the kids. Those are the kids that actually did the historical performance, the drama. I did have some kids submit some different posters. I had one kid submitted a beautiful online presentation on Hiroshima and the destruction that it did, and I was so disappointed that he did not receive any acknowledgments, but even though not all the kids are up there, we did have several kids that I thought did really, really well, and I was very proud of them.
Okay, so this last little bit is just kind of comparing the two programs. So both competitions require a lot of higher order thinking skills from students, so well above and beyond what they're learning in the classroom. It engages students beyond the curriculum also, inside and outside of school. Requires teamwork as well as a lot of individual commitments. So we laugh about having fun at our meetings and a little bit of goofing around there at our meetings sometimes, but a lot of their work truly is done at home, outside in the school day. And we also both share the need for a continual funding to support our entry fees, project expenses, travel needs. Hopefully we make it to States and we'll have more travel needs. But those are always a constant fundraising thing that we're doing. differences between. So each competition taps into a different skill set that students have to perform. So some students will cross and be in both teams. We have a few that are, but they both require kind of a different skill set. The Science Olympiad involves travel to several invitational practice tournaments as a team that just leads up to the competition at the event. And the Social Studies Olympiad requires a lot of different submissions at various times and meeting deadlines, as well as attending the on-site competition. So there's a little bit of a different setup in how the competitions run. So we'd like for you to meet two of our Olympians. The first one you're going to hear from is Miss Tara Van Buskirk, and she's been with me since 6th grade, all the way to 8th grade. And you're also going to meet Grace, who is our Social Studies team member on the very first team. So happy to introduce Tara.
Hi. Science Olympiad has provided me with so many great opportunities. This is my 3rd year being on the team, and I absolutely love it. Science has been a huge interest of mine since I was younger, and Science Olympiad has been a great experience because it's put me in an environment that I can share with others that love science as much as I do. It also has allowed me to do things that I usually don't do in science class or in other parts of my life. I've made so many friends being on the Science Olympiad team. Last year, as Mrs. Young said, it was our first time that we made it to the state competition, which was at Michigan State University. We met a bunch of cool people, and we had experiences that probably wouldn't have happened if we weren't on the team. Overall, Science Olympiad has changed my life and improved my future in so many ways. Now, here's Grace Mars with the Social Studies Olympiad.
History is one of my favorite subjects, so when I heard Mrs. Frederick was sponsoring Social Studies Olympiad, I automatically signed up. Not knowing what to expect, now I know to expect to sign up every year they possibly offer this to me. With the close bonds I created with all my different friends I made, not expecting that to happen. This year, I'm hoping for us to accomplish more than we did last year, and that this program has very opened my eyes about the environment with our subject being Our Earth, Our Home, about me writing an essay about the pollution on a small island called Mewea-Tow. It gave me different ideas how to open the environment for people to get different opportunities to help clean it and solve different problems our Earth is having. This year, I want to write more essays and submit more than I did last year, and I hope all the new participants can join and feel the same way about this experience that I have.
So as you can see, both of our Olympiad programs we're extremely proud of. We have great kids, we have dedicated staff, and we have dedicated parents who are making these realities and these interests come to life. Are there any questions we can answer for you?
I have a couple,
Sure.
but not for you.
Good.
Tara. So you do Science Olympiad. What's your favorite science subject? This is an important question for me when I get home, so make sure it's the right answer.
No pressure.
I really like earth science.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I win that argument at home. My wife loves physics. Not so great. Earth science is better. So how long have you been doing this for?
So I joined in 6th grade, and I've done it every year since then.
That's great. Keep up the good work. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have one for you as well, Grace. So you said your essay was about Midway?
Yes.
You were also in the drama, it looked like?
Yeah.
What was that about?
We did about indentured servants and how they affected our land, about coming over to America from England to affecting the New World.
That's great. So what's your favorite part of social studies? Is it the history?
Yes, definitely the history and becoming close with all the different participants. I never expected to become friends with younger kids, but that has very much changed my perspective with having a lot of close new friends now.
That's great.
That's
Thank you.
Awesome.
Well, any other questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And good luck in this year's competitions. Next item on our agenda is the consent agenda. Approval of minutes for the October 22nd, 2018 regular meeting, November 12th, 2018 special meeting, approval of payment of bills, financial statement, and schedule of investments. Motion is needed.
So moved.
Moved. Support. Comments or questions? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. So carried. Recognition of persons wishing to address the board. I have one. Mrs. Mott. Please join us at the microphone.
Good evening, Mr. Beaver, Superintendent Saibula, members of the board. Welcome back from Thanksgiving break. Hopefully you had a nice restful one and get ready to get back to work. The two lovely young ladies from Marine City Middle School make it very difficult for me to follow their act, but I will try my best. On behalf of the ECEA, Mr. Mullane, we'd like to say thank you for your service. And then I would also like to say congratulations to my boss, Mr. D. I have some wonderful news to share with you about things that are happening in teachers' classrooms. Marine City High School, St. Clair High School, Marine City Middle School, and St. Clair Middle School joined together to take their first-year language students on a field trip to the Standard Larder and Bistro in Ann Arbor, where they had a chance to learn about the culture and history of food from Mexico and France. Their demonstration included samples of 8 authentic and very tasty foods that were prepared by their world-renowned chef. 74 students, along with Senora Flynn, Senora Humble, and Madame Hills, were able to experience this cultural evening out. Wish I could have gone on that one. The St. Clair High School Links program is off to a great start. They have held 2 trainings for our Links, as well as having hosted 2 seminar social events that have given the Links and their peers time to socialize outside of the classroom. In December, they will hold their 3rd training for the Links, and they will bring in a former student to talk about his experience of going through high school with autism. Palm's first graders celebrated the 50th day of school on Monday, November 12th. Mrs. Cabanilla's class dressed like people in the 1950s because they are learning about the past in social studies and about the number 50. They compared the present to the past by playing games such as hula hoop and hippity hops. They had a bubblegum blowing contest and drank root beer floats. The first graders at Palms also had an adjective feast on Tuesday, November 20th. All 29 students and Mrs. Cabanilla sat down to mashed potatoes, corn, candy corn, pumpkin muffins, and milk. They tasted each food and then wrote 3 adjectives to describe the food. The list was used to write a small moment with the adjectives. At Marine City Middle School, the 7th grade resource room with Mrs. Parada completed an order of operation visual activity. The students had to first write directions for making a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. They were given a list of supplies available. After the students were done writing their directions, she proceeded to make their sandwiches. Due to allergies, she made mustard and ketchup sandwiches instead. This gave the students a good understanding of how directions and steps make a difference in how something is done. They then had a class discussion of how this connects and relates to the order of operations in math class. Jake Durham, a government teacher at St. Clair High School, had his students prepared for and participate in a mock trial for the midterm election on November 6th. They prepared by researching candidates and proposals that were on the midterm ballot. They registered to vote in the mock election, and on election day, they cast their ballots. They got the city of St. Clair involved because they asked them to donate the I voted stickers for students to wear after they did vote. Each class had an election committee made up of students who helped register other students to vote, tallied up votes, and announced the totals to each class. They then compared the results of each class with the actual results of the election. In their Bill of Rights and Civil Liberties units, students acted out Supreme Court hearings. After being assigned real Supreme Court cases, students played the role of lawyers on a legal team. They researched their cases and prepared formal arguments to present before 9 students acting as Supreme Court justices. In the end, all students had the chance to act as a lawyer on one Supreme Court case and as a justice on at least another case. A lot of things are happening at Bell River Elementary. Mrs. Robbins' class finished the free little pantry and food drive. It is stocked and ready to help those who are in need. An after-school coding club for 4th and 5th grade students starts this week through the month of December. Students are excited to be using the CS First Storytelling program. Bell River was also a runner-up in a contest sponsored by Lysol and Kinza Flu-NC, get it? Flu-NC, school health programs. They received an award-winning Kinza Quick Care Smart Thermometer and Lysol disinfectant spray and Lysol disinfecting wipes to help keep their school germ-free. Mrs. Robbins was awarded a grant of $100 through Scholastic Book Clubs and Mimic Organization. And lastly, the school's Scholastic Book Fair was a huge success that they ran during their conferences. They would like to thank all the staff, students, and parents for their participation in that. Starting this week in Mrs. Ross's class at Marine City Middle School, 8th graders will be participating in the Constitutional Convention, where each student will receive a character card and a mask. Students will be learning about the compromises that emerged from the Constitutional Convention and participate based on the character card they drew. Eddy Elementary's food drive was a huge success. The first grade students and their teachers, Beth Trudeau and Carrie Wall, collected and then delivered the food to a local charity. Eddy Elementary is also collecting pants for kids in distress. Please consider donating during this giving season. I'm sure you can deliver your pants to Mr. Carlson, and he'll probably sing you a song about it. Tim Lolito spoke to St. Clair Middle School students about the importance of communication, being open-minded with those that are different, confronting bias, choosing a different perspective, and how life is 90% of how you react to things. He connected situations that he went through to the Positivity Project, and he gave examples of P2 character traits of teamwork, open-mindedness, integrity, and identifying and appreciating the good in others. Thank you, former St. Clair High School student and professional football player Tim Lolito, for sharing your time and speaking talents with the St. Clair Middle School student body. The Marine City High School Chorale and Burt Van Dyke visited Oakland University on Tuesday, November 13th. They spent some time on campus and had dinner together in the Oakland Center. After dinner, they walked back to the music building and performed as part of the Chamber Choir Festival in Varner Hall. The evening ended with performances from the Oakland Chorale, and the Marine City students were very excited. It was a great experience for everyone. Marine City Middle School held a 6th grade spelling bee. David Whitehead was the winner, with Addison Puloff coming in second, Harmony Gray was third, and Layla Thomas finished fourth. Many of Marine City Middle School's top 25 students competed a couple of weeks ago in the Knights of Columbus annual spelling bee and finished in the top 10. Abby Pilon was the overall winner and earned a pizza party for her class. Also finishing in the top 3 for 6th graders were David Whitehead and Paul Muscat. The 6th grade teachers who sponsored the spelling bee were Ryan Phelaks, Christy Ellis, Shirley Fredericks, Vicki Miller, Anne-Marie McLeod, and Barb Smith. The St. Clair Marching Saints, under the direction of Micah Volz, just returned from the trip and performances at Walt Disney World. They marched in the parade through the Magic Kingdom the Saturday before Thanksgiving and did a workshop with an acclaimed Disney musician and composer, Alan Gray. 120 students took part in the trip and performed in front of over 30,000 people. There's great video clips you can take a look at. For the 12th year in a row, the 3rd grade classes of Mrs. Eitner and Mrs. Roaring at Gearing Elementary collected food for their annual Wagons of Love community service project. They collected canned goods and non-perishable items in wagons and pulled the food to the St. Clair Ecumenical Pantry. The students then weighed and sorted the food and then stocked the shelves themselves. Approximately 800 pounds of food was collected by the Gearing students to help feed local families this holiday season.
Wow, that's awesome.
So you can see we have lots of great things going on in our schools. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next item on our agenda is the information discussion items, summer tax collection. Tina Thrift.
In order to maintain our summer tax collection, the board is required to pass a resolution before the beginning of each year. The resolution that's provided for your review is requesting for summer tax collections for the general fund and the debt service fund. Without our summer tax collection, the district would be required to borrow money from the state to pay for the routine payroll and our expenses. As you may recall, the district does not receive state aid during the month of September. So with state aid being received on approximately the 20th of each month, we'll go about 2 months from the end of August to the end of October before we receive our first state aid for the subsequent school year. So this would require us for cash assistance. So therefore, I recommend at your next December meeting that the board once again approves for summer tax collection. And I know this is routine, but is there any questions regarding this?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next item are action items. Item A, recommended action. The Board of Education accepts the audit report for fiscal year 2017-18 as prepared and presented by McBride, Manley and Company, PC, at the October 22nd, 2018 meeting. Motion is needed.
So moved.
Moved. Seconded.
Support.
Support. Comments or questions? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. So carried. Item B, per administration recommendation, the Board of Education approves the Bond Steering Committee recommendation for the purpose of a bond proposal as presented at the special board meeting on Monday, November 12th, 2018. Motion needed?
Support.
Moved and supported. Comments or questions?
I think we have some questions
Okay.
that we wanted to just have clarified. Do we address those to you, Suzanne? the
Sure,
questions?
yep.
Okay. So I know it appears as though there's a new trend, I don't know if it's a new trend, but there's a trend in Michigan regarding early learners and the need for them to have their own learning spaces. Can you talk about that?
I sure can, and this is a question that pertains to the Early Childhood Center that would be part of the Pine River proposal, and Danielle O'Grady from TMP has offered to elaborate on this particular topic of early learners having their own learning space.
Thank you for the very important question, Mrs. Frank. I appreciate that as a cause that's very near and dear to my heart as a mother of 3 early learners in East China School District. Yes, it is a trend that we're seeing not only in the state of Michigan, but kind of regionally and nationally as well, that our client base in educational design is really asking for facilities that are targeted towards early learners. And we've seen incredible social, emotional, and learning benefits that come from not just having a specific space that's designed for early learners, but really pushing those spaces together and having some synergies and inertia that happens from putting those programmatic elements together. So yes, we're incredibly excited, and we know the Bond Steering Committee and the community is excited about this programmatic element as well.
Thank you.
Thank you, Danielle.
I have a question too.
Sure.
With the consolidation of the high school and the middle school, is it true that there'll be more advanced programming with the class offerings?
Yes, and this is something that is near and dear to my heart with the curriculum background that I bring with me, and that is that inertia that is needed for programming in a high school and a middle school needs to have a certain number of students to occupy those programs. And so if we want to continue to have the Science Olympiad and the Social Studies Olympiad and the Project Lead the Way or STEM or engineering courses, along with increased AP electives, the social emotional learning objectives that are becoming so important in the classrooms, and all those things that Mrs. Mott brings to us each and every board meeting that we love hearing about. In order for those types of programmings to continue, the consolidation of the middle school and the high school will allow those types of programming to continue. If you get too small in a building, certain classes just we wouldn't have the numbers to run those.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I have a couple questions as well.
Mhm.
I know this plan from the very beginning has been based largely on the declining enrollment that the district has seen for many, many years, as well as the interest in more modern learning spaces. But once we approve this plan, is there enough flexibility should enrollment trends change? Should there be a large influx of families that move into the community? Or will then we be faced with the opposite problem?
Thank you for your question. This was talked about a couple different times in the bond steering committee meetings as well as the community engagement sessions. But I did want to defer to John Castellanos to talk about the actual accommodation within that has been built into each of the buildings to accommodate a possible increase.
I came prepared because I thought that question would surface again. We talked about it, I think, at the November 12th meeting a little bit about what kind of flexibility was built in. I went back through our numbers. Right now at the middle school, high school, the bond proposal includes 1,925 students, 1,100 and 825 at the middle school. And that also includes Riverview as well. I went back through, and that was based on using 25 students per teaching station to come up with a capacity. When we go to the state of Michigan for a bond issue, that's sort of a rule of thumb to use 25 students. If you increase that to 28 students per class, per instructional space, that would be an increase of 275 students. So it very easily be able to accommodate 2,200 students within the footprint that we were recommending from that standpoint. There's enough infrastructure built into the dining areas, those kinds of things that receive a lot of pressure when you increase population within a school, but we feel very comfortable that there is that flexibility. Also at the other schools, the elementary schools, there's built-in capacity for that as well. There's probably at least about a 10% fluctuation in population that could be accommodated without adding any more space to the buildings. Does that answer that one?
Yep, thank you.
Good, and I also wanted to add here that in addition to our Middle Cities study that showed the declining enrollment, the Southeast Michigan Council of Governments, SEMCOG for short, shows from the year 2015 to 2045 an additional change of decrease of 316 students or between the ages of 5 and 17. So from 2015 to 2045, they're still showing a continued decrease in students ages 5 to 17 for this area. So the numbers continue to support the bond steering committee's recommendation.
And then one other question. Obviously, the bond steering committee has been working very hard over a long period of time to bring this plan to the board, which I very much appreciate. But now there's kind of real design work to begin should the board approve it. And if once that happens, if the budget changes, how will that affect what happens to the proposal that goes to the taxpayers in May?
And I had asked Jerry from AUK Construction to address this question just so that we have a definitive answer to what would happen to those monies if a plan were to change.
Okay, thank you, Suzanne. So we're at the very beginning stages of this, and prior to the bond vote, the design won't take place and be firmed up. But what we have is an estimate based on our experience in doing these projects throughout Southeast Michigan And we feel very confident that we're within the line of where this project's going to come in. If there are savings, then there's an opportunity to take care of some of the other needs that are always there. We've done multiple, actually probably 24 bonds with TMP, and we always know that there's another need out there. The needs can be addressed with this money. If there are substantial savings, there is another option that they could be returned to the voters, but typically, in this case, I know everyone looks at the dollars that are involved and it looks like it's a tremendous amount of money, but what we're building with this and what we're touching, there is still need on top of that the district could then address.
Thank you.
I have a question as well. The main purpose behind this is to right size our district. We have a lot of buildings for our size and population, but the big question that has come up is what is the plan then for the buildings that we will not be using, that we'll be vacating?
So the plan for the buildings that will be vacated, both Eddy and Gearing, dollars have been built into the proposal to demolish those buildings or to bring them down. The two high schools my hope there would be to reach out to both cities, both Marine City and the city of St. Clair, to discuss if they would have use for gyms and pools and office space and see if their interest is there. If not, then we would also have to demolish or bring those buildings down. We really don't want to have any empty buildings that we're responsible after this project. Any other questions?
Yeah, there's a couple other questions, actually.
Okay.
How does Riverview East High School fit into the plan? I know that they're added in as counted with the high school numbers, but typically, but we would like to make sure that they have their own entrance, their own identity. Are those needs being addressed?
Yes, they are. And John, if you could, that was a very important part of the planning process.
Yeah, it really was. And you remember we went through A through G, I think, options, and one of the major things that we were looking at was a way to bring that identity to that program. And I think the latest drawing that we show, and again, these are concept drawings, and there's a lot of design work that needs to be done, but we're showing it all having natural light into all of the class areas, having its own identity and its own individual entry point for that school adjacent to parking areas. So I think we've succeeded in providing that kind of space conceptually. And once the bond is approved and we really get to work with all of the detailed design, that'll just be reinforced, obviously.
Excellent, thank you.
I have a couple as well. So obviously, safety and security is really in the spotlight these days, unfortunately. And, building new schools, I'm sure we will have, we will account for that in new builds. But with our older buildings that we are renovating, how is that being addressed?
It is being addressed at all of the buildings. At the elementaries, we have new at Bell River and at Pine River, we have new secure vestibule areas, and we're actually bringing the administration out to the perimeter of the building so that we can reinforce that kind of operation. And over at Palms, we're doing a very similar kind of a thing. So we're touching all of the buildings and making them really welcome centers, but very safe and secure. So it's not just the new builds.
And piggybacking on that, I mean, obviously technology is an important part of what we do every day, so.
It is, it's combined. It's not just architectural ingredients, but it's also the electronics to make that all happen as well.
And all that's being added into the old buildings.
Yes, it's all taken care of within the dollars that we have allocated.
Thank you.
John, I do have a question. Sorry.
That's all right.
Looking over, and I know that you said these are concept drawings.
Yes.
And my concern is just right now, among other things, is the parking. And I noticed that there's a retention pond on one of the drawings. Is there a possibility that that retention pond could be moved to add additional parking?
Yeah, we've discussed this a little bit. Internally, we've discussed it to try to get parking a little closer to where the stadium is and making it more convenient for spectators to be dropped off, someone that's elderly to be able to be dropped off closer to where the seating areas are. We have some ideas of how we can actually loop the road from Meisner to King and be able to get an easier flow to do that. From a dollar and cent standpoint, Jerry, I think that we certainly have all of the storm water management included within the dollars that we're looking at right now. There is a retention area that is just west, south and west of the existing football stadium right now, that right now we're keeping in that location, and we think we can work around it. That'd be more cost effective to work around it, but if it needs to be moved, we have the dollars allocated to be able to. I mean, this is a major site development project, obviously, and we have to take all of those things into account. Right now, we're looking at working around that area and still being able to get parking a little bit closer in.
I just think that from a community point of view, we've got to get that right as far as
We do.
parking
We do.
and the flow of traffic.
We do.
I don't want people waiting 20 minutes to pick up kids.
No. Yeah.
Because there's only one way in and
Yeah.
one way out. I mean, the education piece is huge, but
Sure.
I'm thinking from a
But the logistics are as
Yeah.
equally as important from
Right.
that standpoint. There's enough landmass there that, and we have enough drives, and, we want to make sure that we've segregated bus traffic, pedestrian traffic, and automobile traffic, and make it as convenient as we have. And the drawings need to be tweaked to make that happen, and that's really the next refinement steps of the process.
So I guess this leads into another question I have then. So, obviously, well, I shouldn't say obviously, this will probably be approved. And you said they're conceptual drawings. So, so once it becomes more detailed, will you bring things back to the board
Yes.
for us to take a look at, or
Yep.
Suzanne, or whatever?
Definitely. We're not going to do this in a vacuum. We are your agent, and we're going to be working directly with all of you, with your administrators, and really fine-tuning the designs on all of the projects.
Okay.
Absolutely.
All right.
That's the process. And for the middle school, high school, it's about a year planning process, so it's not just something that just happens overnight from that standpoint.
Well, I guess, okay, that's another question then.
Sorry, I better sit down.
People have asked, okay, so let's say the
Timeline.
bond
The timeline,
passes.
yeah.
Yeah, the timeline.
Jerry, why don't you come on up? Jerry's been really active with all of the timing because it affects the financing of the project as well.
Yeah, so our initial plan, as you know, was the high school, middle school, and then we were going to do early childhood at Pine River, and that was discussed, and we now have K-5 at all the existing buildings and an early childhood addition. So with that has made it where we can focus on that piece first, and that design won't take as long for TMP to get, so we can get the early childhood center going right away as the design is continuing on the high school, middle school. So as John had mentioned, there's about a year time before we would have their design that we could go out and get competitive bids, and everything will be competitively bid. All of the numbers that you've seen right now, these are budgets. There will be a competitive bid process that will be per the state guidelines in purchasing and bidding. So that will take a year to get to that point on the high school. Okay. And then the other projects kind of follow after that. The only one that must happen after the high school, middle school is St. Clair Elementary. The middle school students would have to be here before we could do that transformation. So it's the high school, middle school site. Well, first it's Pine River, early childhood. And then we would be, in 2020, we would be working on the high school, middle school. And it's going to be about 2 years to get the building built. Now, a lot of this still has to be worked out. When we're doing a project this size with this many components involved, there's going to be some phasing involved. We know we have a stadium here. We know we have a performing arts center here. We have to make those operate while we're building a high school, middle school. So the parking, all of that, there's going to be things that we're going to look at with John's team to make sure we're meeting all the needs. So that's kind of the timeline, and then the elementaries would follow after, and then the very last thing we would do would be take down any of the buildings that need to be demoed.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. So, excuse me, well, so some of this work can be done simultaneously?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yep. And some of what we've done with the cost modeling is to try and take advantage of how the bonds are actually issued. And that's not my area of expertise, but they sell these in series, so there'll be a package. So the Pine River site will be a bond that will be sold, and then the high school, middle school, and then the other projects. But those are done in a way to make sure that there's a limit on the amount of interest you're paying. So we do those in logical steps and then get it to, and that's really PFM that put that together. But we worked with them, giving them an idea of forecasting of cash draws.
The buildings that are slated for demolishing, is there any plan on trying to market those before that would ever happen?
We right now have not provided, but that's something, Suzanne, you want to?
No, I had a couple organizations within each of the city organizations approach me about possible uses, but the state of the buildings right now, we would demolish them. We wouldn't try to sell. We did that with ECEC, and it was a long process. So no, they would be demolished.
Do we have estimates as far as the cost per homeowner?
I do. I have the latest taxpayer impact from PFM, and in a $100,000 home, the monthly cost would be $7.08.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And then I have one other question. And it kind of sounds like a timeline question, but it's really, it's not necessarily a timeline question as far as the construction process goes. But once the board approves the recommendation, then this is going to go through the process of ballot language through the state of Michigan. Can you talk a little bit about how all that's going to fall into place?
Yes, on December 14th, Tina Thrift and I will be headed to Lansing to get the ballot language in place and get the bond approved. And once that happens, then we'll be working with John and his group on with TMP to get the plans, the preliminary plans that we've been looking at solidified. So we'll start that planning process. But we have to get this bond approved at Lansing prior to moving forward. And that will happen, I said, our meeting date is December 14th.
And then it'll go on to the ballot in
May of 2019.
Then it goes to the community.
Correct. A community for a vote. So the time frame between Lansing giving us the go-ahead and the vote in May, we'll spend, that will be our time to communicate with all of our communities about, what this impact will be and answer any and all questions that may still be lingering about what this looks like, what the plan is for, and why we're feel strongly about moving forward.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions?
I just want to comment, one of the more difficult decisions that we've had as a board a while ago was about whether or not to close a school. And at the time, we made the difficult decision not to do that with the idea that we didn't have a good plan at that time, and we needed a plan.
Right.
And so what's been happening since that time is we've been struggling with the same problems that we knew we had at the time with funding and old buildings and all those things. but this plan has been put together. And I think that's important for people to understand, and I'm happy that we got to this point where we're not just throwing something together, but we have a really solid plan. During the time that this has happened, it seems like every meeting we have thousands of dollars worth of fixes for old buildings, which is frustrating and difficult because that money's not going to our students and our programs. So this provides us with new facilities, the best that our students deserve and could get. It solves these maintenance problems and allows us to put everything into our kids and our programs. So definitely needed. I'm proud of the district for having the patience to put it together, and we've got a great plan.
Great. Thank you.
All right, we have been recommended, seconded, and discussed. In regards to our bond steering committee, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. So carried. Item 8 is our closed session for the purpose of discussing student disciplinary action. Recommended action that the Board of Education goes into closed session pursuant to Section 8B of the Open Meetings Act, Act 267 of 1976, that being for board discussion connected to the discipline of a student. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. When we come back, our meeting will virtually be over. We will look at items for next regular board meeting. This is budget revision, and then adjournment. We thank you.
Thank you.